When Donna called me and said, Sandra, they'd like you to introduce Lori. We think you know her the best and would do the greatest job. And I immediately said yes, but then when I thought about it, I said, now listen, Sandra, you cannot get up there for an hour and talk about Lori and all the great things that Lori is. I have to take this out because this is how I roll. And so I said, but I got to stick to the script, right? I got to kind of stick to the script and do what I'm supposed to do. But when I think about Lori, Lori is my friend. She is my confidant. I can tell her just about anything. She is a woman of great valor. And I think about how I met her, and when I met her was when I started this TV journey, and she's been with me ever since. In fact, she's been a mentee, like a protege. I have poured into her everything that I and God has downloaded to me in reference to media and TV. She's a TV personality. You know, she has well over like 40 some odd years, and look, don't she look, chick looks good. 40 years of working, you know. She's worked for well over 40 years. 35 of those years were in education. And then she worked 6 years at helping nonprofits and small businesses and entrepreneurs to be able to scale and develop and grow. She is amazing. She is so many things. I was like, I could just keep going. Like, she's an author, she's a speaker, she's all of those things. But I want to tell you a little bit about her personal life, because you really have to know Lori to know Lori. You need to really know Lori. So everybody that knows Lori knows that Wednesdays are off limits, and I respect that about her. I'm a grandmother of 5, and she is too. But on Wednesdays is Grandma Day, and she either cares for several of her grandkids, she's out at the park. It is no work day for Lori, and it's not been like 1 year. You know, some people make a resolution, I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna do, and then it kind of tapers off after a while. It has never tapered off. That is her day. Wednesday is her day with her grandchildren, and she's very, very, very disciplined about it. And so I so respect her. And I think if my grandkids were in Dallas, I'd probably do the same thing. But they happen to be all over the place. Lori is an author. She's authored her own books. She's a speaker. She's the most excellent thought partner that I could ever have in media. She's been with Zandra TV Network from the very first day. She has been there to support. She's been there to lead. She's been my rock, actually. But let me tell you something else about her. Not only is she an author, she is a publisher. She published a book. What is it called?
Cora and the Brilliant Purple Butterfly.
There you go, Cora. I'm telling you, this children's book is phenomenal. She is a publisher that really publishes books with an anointing on it. And so that's the difference. You can be a publisher of books, but to really have an anointed publisher is really something different. She is my friend. I love her to pieces. She has a PhD. I don't know which I have a PhD in education and coaching. She's a spiritual advisor. I could just keep saying she's all of these things because she's so many things. And she's so many things to me. So it is an absolute honor that I present to you Lori Dixon, who is an amazing woman. Lori?
When we start becoming mamas, we have to wear the glasses that go with it. So, oh yeah. So, and I love that Sandra brought up the fact that Wednesdays are off limits because I just finished having one of our grandsons for 5 days. And I want you to know I am still standing. So Wednesday got extended. So our youngest is just turned 4, and he's a powerhouse. He thinks he's a wrestler. And my 8-year-old is the one that stayed with us. So it was really a lot of fun. But I'm glad she brought that up today because that's what we're going to be talking about. And I hope that you can be hearing me. Oh, that was a God thing.
It was,
Just
because I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
Rolled right out. Because today we're going to be talking about balance and bliss. So the first thing that I want to be able to say to you is when I started talking about balance and bliss, and those that know me know that Wednesdays, that's what that day is. It is my balance and bliss. God gave that to me almost 9 years ago, and I honored it. I said, you know, it's important for me to be able to honor my family, honor myself, honor Him, and to be able to stay in line with what His promises are. And part of that honor had to be about understanding balance in my life. I think that journey started probably about 40 years ago. And I want to be able to share a little bit about that with you today. Do you believe in yourself as having balance in your life? Raise your hand if you believe in balance. If you believe that you can even achieve.
Well, you could set it as a value for yourself.
So it's an intention.
Yes.
It's a bar in your life that you're constantly striving towards. And so as we are in January, I wanted to make sure that we talk about one of the things that God has really placed on my heart to share with others. And that's about clearing the way for what He has for you this year. And part of it is understanding what balance truly looks like. So I want everybody, while you're sitting there, it's all right, you won't bump each other, but to put your arms out just for a minute, kind of feel that little fulcrum there going back and forth, like the teeter-totter that I'm frequently found on. You should see it when it gets one grandchild on one side and my husband and I on the other. You know. So, but with balance and bliss, with that balance, it has to be thought about in every single day. It has to be an intention on your life. And so I want to take us on a backward glance at my life and give you just 2 quick examples of how balance and bliss changed my life. The first one, we're going to step just a little bit backwards, and I learned that it was important that family was always involved in our life. And so I always made sure that as I went through my calendar, and years ago I was an administrator for a very, very specialized school in Florida. How many of you know where Florida is? Just checking, making sure everybody's still here. But with that, we learned to go ahead and color code things. That was back in the days that we learned that balance was all about color. We learned that if you wanted to have balance, you counted up how many blues and how many yellows and how many greens, and you valued and you weighted the things in your life. And so with that, I learned that family was always a priority. My faith was always a priority. And so those things were color-coded in my planner. But as years went on, during taking care of my elderly mom, who has since passed, she was having some very severe balance issues herself in life. Learning the lack of independence was starting to happen to her. She had some chronic and very severe health concerns. And so she was in hospice in our home. And so I learned balance real quickly through what was important to make sure that she had every day and that it was present in our home and that I still had to work, my husband still had to travel, and that we figured that rhythm of life out together. As my mom was going through one of her extremely difficult health challenges, I ended up trying to catch her as she was starting to fall. She was having a lack of body movement, and I had already called 911. So my adrenaline was a little up there, as you can imagine. They were on their way, and I was helping Mom back into a chair because my mom was a very proud lady, and she wasn't going to be sitting anywhere that wasn't appropriate when the paramedics came. So of course she had to adjust herself and get herself all seated well. And so she was wanting to sit back down in a firm chair so that they could help her onto the stretcher to get her out to the ambulance. Well, here I was. I know how to lift. I have that therapeutic background. I know how to do things in physical therapy and to be very cautious. So, you bend at the knees and you help them and you put your arms around them in certain ways. Well, what I didn't expect was Mom to have a very, very severe back spasm in that moment. So here's Mom, much taller than I was, with a back spasm, yanking on me, and both of us went over the top of the chair. So when the paramedics came, they didn't know which one of us was actually going and if we were going to go together. So I said to them, do not worry about me. Isn't that what we do? Let's get Mom taken care of. And I limped into the car and got myself to the hospital, following cautiously behind. Well, later on, a few days after Mom had been in the hospital, you could see me walking down the hallways with a cane. And then it got worse. Didn't get better. And so as Mom was recuperating and then going to another facility for rehab for a while, again, you would have thought I should have been in the bed next to her. But instead, I had to learn to still find joy in those moments and to be able to say, I got ya, Mom, don't worry, I'll be there when I need to be there. And so I hobbled. Eventually, I transitioned into a walker. And again, they were like, which room are you going to, my dear? Do you need us to help you in bed? And I was like, no, I'm coming to see my mom. Eventually, as Mom got home, I went and cared for myself to find out that we had caused very severe trauma to my back. I won't go into the details of what happened, but it progressively got worse. I finally was in a wheelchair. I did not have the nerves in my right leg. They weren't certain, it had severed it. And they weren't certain that I was actually gonna get that feeling back. So after Mom passed, I got strong enough to be able to do a few things here and there. But then what happened was, God said, Lori, you will walk. You will walk. And I said, well, why is that so important? Because I can navigate my life and put it in balance, and I'm happy about it every day. I can still do my job. So why is that so important right now? And he said, because I have plans. Little did I know, we then found out we were going to have our first grandson. All the others had been girls. Have you been there? Yep. We were kind of girled out. I had done the Barbies and all of the other fun things. But we were ready for a boy. And so was my husband. So when we found out, I went and marched right in to my back doctor and I said, I don't know what we got to do, but we got to figure this out. Because my intention was to be able to push my grandson's stroller from our house to the neighbors down the way. Now, God kept saying, Lord, you have been joyful through every step of this. Losing your mom, being able to keep up with business, being able to be with those that needed you. You stayed speaking. You did exactly what I needed you to do. But your grandson is going to need you. And so with that, I ended up having back surgery. They still said, your back is going to be healed, but we don't know if you will ever get full use out of your right leg. And I said, have you ever seen me in flats? Those of you that know me well, you will know I don't wear flats unless it's flip-flops. Or unless it's a day that I'm running around with the grandkids. But I want you to know that God told me every day to walk in what was the balance of my life, to be able to be joyful and blissful in every step. And when my grandson was born, not only did I walk and be able to push his stroller at 6 weeks old, yes, they allowed us to watch them beginning at 6 weeks old, down to the neighbors, but I also climbed up the steps at the neighbor's house to sit for a while and let them see our new grandson. And what I learned in that moment was that balance and bliss was an intention that God had placed on my life to teach others that no matter what was going on in their life, that balance can be found as long as we are with Him and we're putting and honoring those important things that God asks us to honor, and putting those in the right place at the right time. And so with that, I started calling my Wednesdays my Balance and Bliss Day. Because not only did I gain balance and I honored it, but I started gaining bliss. Because if you don't know what it sounds like when a baby starts laughing, you cannot help but laugh with them. When he was crawling across the floor and doing hysterical things, or now when he sat with me yesterday and said, so Nana, what are you going to talk to all these women about tomorrow? I think you need to talk with me about it first. And I said, well, it doesn't have anything to do with Star Wars or sports, but that may come into the discussion for a brief moment when I share with them about you. Because when Clark came into our life, I really got what bliss really was. And there's not a Wednesday that's gone by that I get invitations to go to things that I don't say, I'm sorry if it's on a Wednesday, I'd love to come, but I really need my balance and bliss. It's been the days that I have found the most joy. Yes, the days that I hurt a little bit by the end of the day, or my husband and I go to bed a little bit earlier on Wednesday nights, because we honored that. We honored what God told me. We honored that when you set an intention in God, and it's around God's purposes for your life, you will walk forward in newness. And I will let you know, yes, there are times that my right leg gets a little more swollen than others. And there are days that the nerves don't feel so great in my back. But when you look at the balance and bliss in every day of your life that comes forward, your purpose in Him changes. All right, I want to take you one more fast step back. Are you ready to go? Yeah. All right. I was back doing administration work. I was doing Bible studies. I was out speaking on a national circuit. I was writing. I was coaching new teachers and new therapists and designing new programs and going and doing all sorts of cool things. I was getting more degrees and more certificates because that's what was required back then to do the job that I felt God needed me doing. What I will tell you is one day I was at Bible study and my minister, who knew me really, really well, I can still see where we were sitting out by his pool. All of us had just finished Bible study, and we were all kind of just relaxing. And he came over and he said, "So Lori, how's your week been?" And I had kind of told him, and I said, "Oh, and we've got these people making such great strides, and I've got kids that are walking across the floor when they couldn't walk across the floor. I've got parents that are showing up for their kids, and I've got this over here, and when you see light bulbs go on, it's just like the most miraculous thing in life." And I'm giving him all this wonderful things that have been happening. And he looked at me and he asked me two questions. One is, I didn't ask about all of them. I asked about you. And I went, "Oh, well," and I gave him a little, "Oh, I'm doing pretty well," and, and kind of gave him a little quick update. And then his second question was, "So when do you rest?" And I looked at him and I went, "That's not what's important. God wants us doing. God needs us out there on purpose. He needs us doing for Him. The kingdom is coming. And we've got to get ready. We have to get people ready. I need to be able to share the love of Jesus." And he said, "But when do you rest?" And I looked at him and I thought, dude, you either are not hearing me or there's something else going on here. And he said, "The other day I was reading Psalm 23. And I was getting ready to do a new sermon series. And he said, as I was reading through it, I thought of you." And I was worried because, Psalm 23 is not quite what I wanted associated with myself. But what I will say is he stopped at the verse that says that you will rest. You will lay down and rest. And he said, "I thought about you. I never see you rest. You're always the first volunteer. You're always the one that's there if we need something. You're always having more and more to-dos." And he said, I'm going to use you. I hope that's okay in church on Sunday. And he said, "But I wanted to ask, when do you rest?" And I said, I'm going to take that to heart. And in that moment, I went home and I started writing all over my Bible in Psalm 23. So I want to show you. This is the Bible that I used for so many years. Of course, I have to get there now real quick. Hold on. So I can show you my Psalms. Sorry, guys. Of course, I should have marked it fast. My Proverbs. There we go. All right. So as we started doing study on Psalm 23, we broke it down. I started writing all over it. I even started a notebook about Psalm 23 because it spoke to me so loudly. And so I want to be able to read it to you in my new favorite Bible. And if you haven't gotten one, you really need to. It's the New Passion Translation. It is, I use it constantly with clients, but I will tell you, I read multiple different translations. And when I have read this one for others, they are like, whoa. So let me read a little bit of Psalm 23 to you for a moment. So what I'd like you to do is sit back for a second, just breathe and allow God to speak through these words. Yahweh is my best friend and my shepherd. I always have more than enough. He offers a resting place for me in his luxurious love. His tracks take me to an oasis of peace near the quiet brook of bliss. That's where he restores and revives my life. He opens before me the right path and leads me along in his footsteps of righteousness so that I can bring honor to his name. Even when your path takes me through the valley of the deepest darkness, fear will never conquer me, for you already have. Your authority is my strength and my peace. The comfort of your love takes away my fear. I'll never be lonely, for you are near. You become my delicious feast. Even when my enemies dare to fight, you anoint me with the fragrance of your Holy Spirit. You give me all I can drink of you until my cup overflows. I'm going to leave you with this last one. So why would I fear the future? I ask you today that when you hear that resting, that unbelievable feeling of the balance in life with the bliss and that joy that God brings into every part of our day, God asks us to rest. He asks us to be. I learned as being the daughter and being a caregiver that led me to new steps of being. Because sometimes watching an old movie that you'd seen 1,000 times, as long as I could sit there with my mom, is where my bliss was. I wasn't sitting there doing a grocery list. God taught me about being just as much as you're doing. There is so much bliss when we honor God. So I want you to do an exercise with me for just a moment. And if it's okay, since most of you have finished your meals, is if you just stand up for a moment, kind of shake it out, okay? God always shows me everything in visuals and movements. That's how he speaks to me. And so God showed me that being and doing are those things that we try to get into balance. On your note page, you'll see those two words written. I want you to think about your weekend. If you were doing a lot like we were with our 8-year-old grandson, that was a lot of doing for me, right? My being was out of balance. That's why I was so exhausted. When God speaks, he creates balance. When you're listening to those moments of being as much as you're doing, being in him, being reading, being quiet, being in prayer, things start to come into balance. So I want each one of you for just a moment, if you're willing, to show me the balance. And those at your table, what was your weekend like already? Was it being more than doing more than being, or was it pretty much in balance? Go ahead and show those that you've been sharing discussions with. Good. Yes. Yes. All right, raise your hand real quick if you had more being this weekend. Good. How many of you had more doing? Uh-huh. All right, you can have a seat. I want you to be able to think about your week as you go forward. And in each day, I want you to carry that intention of, am I being more than I'm doing? Am I staying away from others and not networking anymore? Am I not picking up the phone when God nudges me to call a friend and listen? Am I not doing my time with God? Am I not sharing a prayer for a friend? Or am I doing those things? Am I being in those moments with him? But I'm not moving forward in the steps of my purpose. I say it a lot these days. God is clearing a path. God is getting rid of the clutter. He's moving you forward. To be able to accept that call, you have to be able to do. But if you're only doing and not listening to him, that's when I call it you're going off-roading. You know, you're over there at the service road and we're all waving as we go by. She's over at the 7-Eleven and the truck stop again. Right? So I want you to be thinking each day, what can I be in action and walking forward in that purpose that God has for me? For me to be recalled to action for him. And then how can I be more for God? What do I need to learn about? What kind of time do I need to be spending with him? So I'd like to leave you with Proverbs 16:9. In his heart, a man or woman plans his course. He sets intention, he puts his schedule together, you may still color code it, but the Lord determines his steps. Through it all, God provides the balance and bliss in our be and do of life. Think about where your being and doing is. And I challenge you to schedule a balance and bliss day or hour or weekend and see how that changes the steps forward. I thank you for allowing me to be here with you today. I do have some things over at the table, or if you would like to just come over, I'm always welcoming of hugs. It's like my favorite thing in life. I hated COVID. It's hard to hug people through Zoom. The other thing is we have a 30-day challenge for you to practice this. I can send you a PDF. All you have to do is download it, and it reminds you through the day, what intentions do I have? And by the end of the day, you list the be's and do's. It also has a gratitude piece. And so if you're interested, all you have to do is either email me or come over and put your name on the clipboard, and I will automatically send you the PDF. It's my gift for you to get your being and doing going for 2023, and for you to find the balance and bliss in each day and in each week. And I thank you for letting me be here, because you've been my balance and bliss for today. So thank you all.